Hi, and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week, we are talking all about how to break the relationship codependency cycle. Now, if you're currently in a romantic codependent relationship or have been in one in the past, you'll know what an unhealthy and toxic place this can be. Many clients come to us because they've come out of a codependent situation and they don't want to repeat the same mistakes. They want to work on their own self-love and self-validation rather than expect and need it from their relationship or their future partner. But the problem is they know that they are still attracted to partners that they believe can feed this insatiable need for being wanted, valued and validated. And so they're concerned they're going to end up codependent, enmeshed and trapped again. Well, if you can relate to any of these issues, this teaching is going to be for you. We'll be explaining what's going on here and most importantly, what you need to do to finally break the relationship codependency cycle. Okay, David. So I know you work with a lot of clients around these sort of relationship codependency issues. What are the main kind of signs or symptoms that someone is suffering from this problem?
Well, I think the thing that they notice themselves is they're putting others in front of them, and their life is focused on pleasing them and wanting them to kind of give them praise or strokes. So it's a kind of a perverse way of putting others above you, pleasing them, trying to keep them happy, and then at the same time expecting them to give you value, to give you worth, to look after you. So it gets very confused, and hopefully in this session here we can sort this out.
And of course, when we put ourselves in that sort of dynamic, we end up very unhappy.
Well, yes, Alex, because it can't work, can it? You can't, because if you're giving the responsibility of your value and your worth to someone else, it can't work, because it becomes that you have to placate them so they give you what you want, and no one can give you value. It's nonsensical. It's a complete confusion that normally, in my experience, goes right back to childhood and the misunderstanding about relationships, about love, about holding that balance as in a relationship, and that's where it goes wrong.
Because a lot of people, most of our clients are incredibly self-aware. They know that it's wrong to seek their own self-worth from another person, so their relationship partner. They know that they should be doing this work for themselves. But yet they end up being almost like magnetized back to the same type of partners. So why is it when we logically know it's what we're doing is wrong, we end up still doing it?
Well, you've just answered the question, because we're not working from logic. We don't work from logic. So that when you're doing that, you're not working from your intellect, from your logic, from what I call sharing your spirituality. You're working from your emotions. You're grounded in your emotions. And so therefore, the inner child part of your mind is in control. And the inner child is striving and looking and wanting other people to give them what she or he believes is missing. And so it becomes, as I just said earlier, very kind of backwards or a perverse way of looking at it, because the inner child misses the fundamental things. And we did a series of videos about what is love in relationships. So please go and have a look at that. But I'll just do a quick recap. So love is a description of an emotional feeling. So you can love your children, you can love your partner, you could love chocolate, you could love watching the sunset. You're describing an emotional feeling. And so if you agree with me that you are the creator of your emotional feelings, this is the first thing that goes wrong. Because instead of taking full responsibility and accountability for that feeling of love, they're looking outside of themselves for someone to give them love, like a commodity. Like if they will give them this love and then this will make them okay and acceptable and in their balance and give them worth and give them value and give them purpose in life. So again, they're looking outside of themselves. The problem is it doesn't matter how much your partner loves you, they can't give you this commodity of love. And so therefore, when you're searching, you're always wanting, you're always needing. And it's a little bit, as one of my clients said to me, and I thought it was a great insight, it's like an addict. You're always searching. It's never enough. You always want something more. You're always looking for something more. You're always working harder to please them, to get them more, for them to love you more, when you're missing the point, because they can't give you the commodity of love. They can demonstrate that they love you, but they can't give you this potion of love. And then the second part of this is what we'll come on to. So love is an emotional feeling, and then relationships. That's what we're trying to mix together. So a relationship, well, the word tells you the ability to relate or the ability to communicate. And that's what we're trying to put together.
And do you think that a lot of people misunderstand that they somehow have to become very embroiled, very dependent within their relationship in order for it to be a good relationship? You know, that's kind of like what if you've got a really great, strong relationship, it means you're very much knitted together. And I guess with that comes some measure of dependency or codependency.
Well, I think the word is that codependence. So you're in a relationship, healthy relationship, because you can support each other and you can be there for each other at times. But this goes out of balance. I often think about it like a pair of those old-fashioned scales goes out of balance when all the one partner is doing is trying to get something from the other partner. And that when it falls into people pleasing, always agreeing, never raising the voice, never giving any opposition, always just going along. Or that can swing the other way, and then they become highly critical, nagging, and always never happy, and it's never enough. And so it goes back to the basic belief and what you believe about yourself. Because I know it's a bit cliche, but it's a wonderful saying. Before you can have a relationship with someone else, you have to have a relationship with yourself. And that sounds, it's just one of those sayings. But if you think about it, if you haven't got a meaningful, loving, peaceful, calm relationship with yourself, grounded in your shared truth, honesty, and integrity, you will always be just searching for someone else to give you that. And they simply can't.
And what about, David, you mentioned one of the main drivers, which we will talk a little bit more about as well, is this thing of I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not valuable. Therefore, the codependency arises because you're expecting your partner to give you that love, that value, that worth. But so they're all kind of core beliefs. What about if you know you've had a bad relationship in the past, codependent relationship, but that you have a core belief like I don't deserve better than this. I don't want to hold out for someone better because I don't think I'm ever going to get them because I'm not good enough. And so that's almost like the reason then to stay in a bad, enmeshed, codependent situation where you know the dynamic is unhealthy.
Well, that belief is just a derivative of I'm not good enough. When you say I don't deserve something, this is a derivative and it's about yourself. And this is why in these codependencies, when I work with clients, the inner child part of your mind is always active, very strong. So for those of you new to our sessions, let me just quickly explain. But again, if you're looking at archives, we've done lots of explanation about what the inner child is. So the inner child is a part of your mind that's almost frozen in time. I think about it like a kernel in the middle of a nut that's holding on, that's really tight. And this gets developed around the age of 6 years old and 9 years old. And what normally happens is you've been brought up in a family where you believe you have to earn love. You have to earn validation. You have to earn approval. It's not something that flows to you naturally. It's something that you have to do from your parents, from your siblings, from your extended family. And so right away, that belief that's implanted in you at a very early age. It's like a program running. And as you say, logically, as you go older, you know logically this isn't correct, but this inner child is still striving and searching for this approval, this validation, because they think it's something they have to receive. There's something they have to give. And so when you get older, you get this torn. And to answer your questions, why do we keep going for those kind of people? It's because it's very familiar. And these type of people seem very comfortable to us, even though we know fundamentally in our intellect this is not quite right. But we have all of these other beliefs playing in the background. As you say, I'm not good enough. I can't cope on my own. I'm unlovable. I'm very grateful that somebody's showing me an interest. I want to be able, they wouldn't be interested with me unless I can really give them a service. I can do something for them. And so it gets very warped and unbalanced and misaligned.
Yeah. And how on earth do we, because I can see from what you're saying, this is all down to these core beliefs and it's all down to our inner child issues. How do we begin to unknot this? Because it's almost like we logically know what we're doing is wrong and yet we're still doing it. So it's like, well, where do I go now? Where do I go now with this problem?
Well, you do the golden thread. In our model, we have a process called the golden thread, which is a self-inquiry model that you can do for yourself. So you start off with the negative feeling that I call a red light feeling. The first thing you have to think about, and this is so important if what we're describing is what you see yourself doing, you have to first think about this teaching. And please do not accept any teaching unless you're fully with it. The teaching is you are the creator of your emotions. You are not the victim. Very simple, but very profound. So every emotion that you experience in your body, you have created. Those creation of those emotions come from a belief as or a thought. Just to clarify, I am not saying you shouldn't create emotions. I am not saying emotions are wrong. I'm saying the opposite. Emotions are very natural. They make us unique human beings and very important for who we are and how we function in this world. But we have to understand that we create them. Other people don't create our emotions. They can't put an emotion into our body. We are perceiving and reacting to other people and situations as a stimulus. So we have to look at what our belief structure is, what our programming is, if you like, or what the lens that we're looking at life through. So to do the golden thread, you first accept that you are the creator of your emotion. And then you can ask yourself, why have I chosen to create that emotion? Why have I chosen to react in this way? Why have I chosen to become codependent? What is it? What's in it for me? And then you do a series of why. And that will bring you, after about 3 or 4 questions, maybe 5, it'll bring you down to what you said, one of the 3 lies, or something that sounds like this. I'm not good enough is the normal one. I can't cope. So in this context, it would be, I can't cope on my own. I need someone there. I need that support. I need somebody to hold my back. I need someone to take the blame. And I'm unlovable or I'm unworthy. Now, when you hear yourself, and if you've ever heard yourself saying one of those 3 things, so the golden thread is the trail down that you follow to the inner child. When you hear yourself saying one of those 3 statements in whatever form, you are now speaking to your inner child. And what we have to do then is to have that inner child conversation. Again, we've shown this and described this on many videos. You can go back into the archives and go through it. We call this reparenting that part of the mind. So you have to be able to open up a negotiation, because the inner child, I'm just going to use an example, may believe, like I've just said, that value is a commodity. Value is something that's given to them. They have no value unless somebody gives them value. And if you think about the word validation, that's what it means, the giving of value. But how can someone give you value? It doesn't make sense. And that's really what we have to educate the inner child on, because the result of that is the codependency.
But David, if we are saying that we have a part of our mind and a part of our psyche, maybe our subconscious mind, that is like this child, isn't it therefore normal and right for this child within us to want to get positive strokes, to want to feel valued, to want to feel cared for, that someone's there to protect them? Isn't that a normal kind of wish and ask? Particularly if a lot of people say, well, I'm willing to put in my part, I'm willing to help them and do my bit for them, but I'm desperately wanting it back and I'm not getting it.
Okay, so there's two questions there you asked. The first question, yes, it is totally normal and natural for a child to want that when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but not as a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old person still wanting to act like an inner child, because that becomes very unattractive, that you're needy, you're wanting, you're never happy, you're never satisfied. So it's totally normal and natural for the child, when you are a child, to want that. And I'm sorry if you didn't get it. I'm sorry if your parents or your family wasn't supporting and wasn't loving and wasn't understanding. But you have to understand that that part of your mind that I'm calling the inner child is still needy and still wanting that. And so if you're constantly looking for someone else, particularly a life partner, to almost parent you, this is not going to work. This is an unbalanced, mature relationship.
And David, you mentioned, if we didn't get it when we were younger, is that why we want it now when we're older?
Yes.
And are we looking for it in the right places?
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say. The inner child now is craving this attention. And we have to use all these different words, because every client we use a different word: validation, attention, support, love, protection. So the inner child is still craving that he or she didn't have. But the problem is, now you're a mature person and you're still, part of your psyche, part of your belief system is still looking for that childlike gratification, that support, those strokes, that love, that protection. And then in the mature relationship, that takes the balance of the relationship out of kilter. And then you have these problems, because if you look needy, if you look vulnerable, if you look like you can't cope on your own, then it makes the partner more powerful. And then you're attracting partners who want to be in control, who want to be the more powerful, dominant person as in the relationship, because they're attracted to that energy that you're giving out.
And so I guess that makes it even harder for you to shift, because in a way, there's two people dancing in this dynamic.
Yes.
And so your partner also wants you to stay codependent because it suits them in the same way it kind of suits you.
That's right, Alex, because this is why it's so important that if you are in these type of relationships, or you keep on repeating, as this subject's about, you've got to take time to look at yourself. And again, it's cliche, but have a relationship with yourself. So the answer to the second part of your question is, when the inner child is looking externally outside of themselves for this love, validation, approval, they'll always be searching because no one can give it to them. So part of the re-education of the inner child is to tell them to look within you. It is your responsibility to love yourself, to create that feeling of love for yourself. It is your responsibility to honor yourself. It is your responsibility to respect yourself. And this is normally where the most difficult part, because all through the life, my clients have been looking externally for somebody to fit that bill, and no one can. And so it's not natural for them or familiar for them to be responsible.
David, I'm kind of confused and also a bit thinking, I can't believe this would work, because it's like the inner child, our inner child is sitting with a complaint. It feels in deficit, or it believes it's not good enough.
It creates a feeling, and because it believes it's not good enough. Yes.
So it's looking externally. Are you saying that we need to sit and have that inner conversation with our inner child and say, I'm really sorry you believe this. I'm really sorry if what happened in our childhood was kind of created this foundation of misunderstandings about our own self-worth. But now you've got to really love yourself. You've really got to believe in yourself. You've really got to value yourself. Are you saying we just have that conversation with our inner child and then it just sorts itself out? Because I'm kind of thinking the inner child would just get really upset and frustrated by that type of conversation or dialogue.
This is such a good question, because this is why I like the imagery and the definition of the inner child to the subconscious mind or the ego or the devil. I like to see that part of your mind as the inner child, because first of all, it allows you to have this intimate, loving, calm relationship with them. But it also allows you, the mature part of you, as you call it, logical or the intelligent or the grown-up part of you, to almost act like a parent. So instead of looking externally to partners and future partners to become your external parent or substitute parent, it is much better to have that conversation with the inner child and to give the inner child the dialogue, and the teaching is there is someone that will always be there for you. There is someone that always has been there for you. There's someone that can't leave you. There is someone that's always got your back. There is someone that we can come together as a team and work together. And this would be the type of inner child conversations. Again, we've done meditations on this, and we've done plenty of videos on this. And so what that need, that want, that looking externally, everything that the inner child wants can be gained internally. And that is the teaching. Now, the inner child, as you quite rightly say, at the beginning will resist this. And I quite, when I'm working with my clients and I'm speaking to their inner child, they'll say things like, I don't trust her. She lets me down. He lets me down. He doesn't listen to me. Oh my goodness, how many times have I heard that when the inner child is speaking? They never listen to me. They never acknowledge me. They don't talk to me. They don't give me the answers. And when I'm working with a client, I see that as my role, really, is to teach the mature, logical side of your mind how to have this conversation. And that's why I like the analogy of the inner child, because it is like you reparenting yourself. So rather than the inner child looking outside and be constantly disappointed for external feelings, that you can create for yourself.
David, I think the first hole that the inner child would pick in what you've just said is the inner child thinks, okay, so what you're asking me to do here is turn to you, the kind of, so if it was me, the logical adult parent, Alex, for validation, rather than turn to my partner or someone else. And it feels like you're saying from now on, you've got to settle for a dry, digestive biscuit of validation rather than a luscious, sumptuous cream cake of external validation. It feels like a compromise, and that it's not going to be powerful or effective enough.
But you see, that was a great example of that little role play you just did there. So for those of you watching this video, just roll back the video for 30 seconds and just see the word that Alex had to use twice. She had to use the word, it feels, it feels, it feels. And that's why I said at the beginning of this teaching, the most important thing that you can really consider and meditate on before you have this conversation, are you the creator of your emotions? Because that's how the inner child has been controlling you. It's got it wrapped around, you're wrapped around the inner child's finger because it just creates this feeling. And then the logical part of you crumbles, to be honest. It just surrenders. And you can't have this conversation because if you just demonstrated, the inner child is just giving, I feel, I feel, I feel, I feel, I feel, rather than I think. And so, as we've said on the videos, when you're doing the golden thread work, do not say I feel. Replace it with one of these three. I think, I believe, I choose. So what you should say is, I believe relying on you is like a dry biscuit.
Yeah.
Then I would say, why do you believe that I am a dry biscuit when somebody else outside of yourself is a luscious cream cake? I'm sorry, sweetheart, that doesn't make sense to me. See, that this is the conversation. But once the inner child catches you on I feel, then the inner child will always win the argument.
Well, I guess the inner child method of communication is through feelings.
Exactly.
We know the inner child is at play when we experience very strong, uncomfortable, painful, red light emotional feelings.
Exactly.
When in this instance, we feel very needy, we feel like we're worried about what our partner's going to think of us. We feel anxious because they may leave us. All the signs of codependency. It feels, again, this is the inner child. It feels grindingly hard to get the inner child to switch to being logical and adult in the think, I believe, I choose way that you're describing. Is this still an effective way to teach our inner child to communicate with us? Or, because I'm kind of thinking some therapists may say, we need to speak to our inner child talking about their feelings and emotions all the time. We need to talk to them on their level, not get them to see things logically.
I think you're right. You've asked several questions there. I think some therapists do say to their clients, you have to really concentrate on your emotions and your feelings, and you have to go through those feelings. Now, when the inner child is giving you feelings, negative emotions, red light feelings, I call them, a lot of my clients will see that as something to be avoided, something to run away from, something to put a lid on and to lock away and to shun. But I don't see that. I see this as the pleading of your inner child for help, the pleading of your inner child for education, the pleading for once in their life that someone can sit down with them and be able to ride over the wave of emotion and actually look into their eyes and give them good, sound, careful teachings. And that's why I think the Wu Wei model is different to other models, because at the base of this model, Alex, is spirituality. And spirituality I call Shen, so it's not confused with anything religious. No religion here, no angels, no crystals, nothing external. It's who you are, not just the material part of you, but what really defines you. And that spirit, I think that Shen can be easily described as when you act with truth, honesty, and integrity. So you have to sit with your child, and you're absolutely right. Some of my clients, and I think that's where I can help them the most, when they do first, the inner child would just volley a pile of emotions. They do this because they know in the past you've given up. and it's like a test to see whether they can trust you. So once you can get over that wave of emotions and then start to speak with truth, honesty, and integrity, and you'll see immediately that the response of the inner child is different, because for the first time, the inner child will say, someone is listening to me. Someone, seeing it goes right back, communication, relationships. Someone is listening, someone is agreeing or disagreeing. A lot of the time when I speak to my clients as in a child, they don't always agree. Like, I don't believe if I was speaking to your inner child and little Alex says, relying on big Alex is like eating a dry biscuit, I would go, well, why do you think the big Alex is like a dry biscuit?
Mm.
See, and then the inner child knows I've registered what she's saying.
Yeah.
So you think the big Alex is a dry biscuit, but somebody else is like a luscious cream cake.
Do you think the reason why we see ourselves as like a dry biscuit, the drug isn't so powerful, is because in the past, the adult part of us simply hasn't listened to the inner child, simply hasn't taken the time, simply hasn't put in the effort to really think through our own self-worth, to really meet our own needs. In a way, we've kind of been lazy, although it's unhealthy and it's been created really unwanted results in terms of our relationship outcomes.
Well,
we just haven't taken self-responsibility.
I certainly wouldn't call it lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that when you're a child, you have reasonable expectations that your parents should give you this attention, this guidance, this love. Unfortunately, for a lot of us and a lot of my clients, for whatever reason, the parents have not been able to fulfill that parental role because they can't do it for themselves. So they certainly can't do it for you. And so the inner child is still looking for someone else. It's like a piece of a jigsaw missing, Alex, and they want somebody else to put the piece in. And really the conversation is, and it goes down to the words that you say, it's far more empowering. It's far more spiritual. It's far more truthful. It allows you to live in your flow and to reach your potential when you're doing it. My word is self-sufficient. When you have that sufficiency, well, yes, we want to be in a relationship, but we want to be in a relationship of equals. We're not reliant. Of course, we would help them. And of course, we expect them to help us. But this is how a relationship should flow. But if we're always needy, if we're always, and this is a problem when you're in this codependency cycle, you can never be satisfied. It really doesn't matter. Even if your partner was one of those partners that was really trying to meet your needs, if he ripped out his heart and give it to you, you'd probably moan that the blood was going all over the floor and he'd made a mess. So he can never satisfy you. And so the partner just gives up because he thinks, I can't win this battle. And this is why it's so important to have that relationship as with yourself and learn the inner child, not to look externally outside of themselves, but to look internally and to create this bond. This is what I'm looking for, rather than the inner child and the mature you or the logical you creating a tug of war and wanting somebody else to come in and solve this. I want you to solve it because it's your tug of war. It's for no one else. And I want the mature you and the inner child to come together as one.
So on a practical day-to-day basis, what can we be doing to work on this inner relationship with ourselves? And are they different things depending on whether we're single or whether we're already in a relationship?
No, they are not different things as if you're already as in a relationship or single, because this will take a little bit of time. The first thing is to identify. Where are you looking? So the word is normally value. You see, I believe we intrinsically have value. Every human being intrinsically has value. I've often said in these videos, in the delivery room, the midwife doesn't hold a baby up and says, quick, can somebody inject this baby with some value? You have value. Value is not something that's given to you or taken away from you from other people or society. So that's the first thing. If you're looking for value, for worth, for approval, you're looking in the wrong place. So if you identify that, then go back and have a look. Are you the creator of your emotions? Because you know when you do the golden thread, the inner child will control you by using emotions. So once you accept, yes, I am the creator of my emotions, they're natural, normal, but I create them. Then you don't want to hear, I feel. You want to hear, I think, I believe, I choose. You do the golden thread. Why are you creating the red light emotion? Why are you looking for, you do the self-inquiry. Again, we've done many videos on this. Bring you down to the 3 lies. This is the inner child now talking. And then you have the conversation with the inner child. And that's when you have to be like the adult. Again, we've done videos on this, reparenting the inner child. The inner child will try and control you as you did when you were doing the role play. I feel. And sometimes the inner child will be very negative. I can't trust you. This is the one I normally, you've let me down. I prefer to trust somebody else. And so these are the hurdles that you have to get over. And normally when I'm working with a client for 1 or 2 sessions, these are the hurdles we deal with. I teach them how to do that because they've never heard that. They don't know how to address the inner child. And more importantly, to listen to the inner child. And so that's the life lesson, really, to listen, to communicate, and to bring the inner child and the mature person together as one. So it's an unbreakable bond based on truth, honesty, and integrity.
And this sort of work can be done in a sort of quiet 10-minute meditation with yourself, through journaling, through any form of self-expression, or, if you're out on a walk, your lunch break, just to think about, what's driving my thoughts here. And I guess also if you're in a relationship or you're actively looking for someone to be in a relationship with, if you catch yourself with those red light emotions and feelings that you are, I guess, wanting to people please or seeking the thrill of validation in some way, then you know that there's something to be looked at in a bit of a deeper way, and that you shouldn't just let the inner child roll on with the same pattern of behavior as it normally has done. So again, if you catch yourself doing that, then either right there and then or later that day, you sit down and then have that conversation. What's going on here? What's driving this? What's the core belief here? How can I, adult Alex, parent Alex, fulfill these needs? Or how can I clear up a misunderstanding here in what you believe about yourself?
And the difficulty that you're identifying is only the difficulty of familiarity. One of the qualities of all our inner children, the inner child will always go with familiarity. Some people will call it easy, but it's easier. It's easier, David. I'd never understand that because it definitely isn't easier, but they mean familiar. Or some people will say it's comfortable. It's my comfort zone. And so this will be the number one thing. As you begin to do this work, what a lot of people do is they start, they get some success, and then they revert back to what doesn't work. They revert back to what is familiar. And so you have to go through this process. As you said, you called it right, not to take over your life. 15 minutes is more than enough, 20 minutes. Go through a meditation, do journaling, go for a walk, think about it, and think about it as your inner child. A lot of my clients like to have a picture of themselves when they were 6, 7, 8. And it's almost like you're talking to the inner child, and you're also listening. Very important when you're doing the conversations. Again, we mentioned it in the previous videos. You never tell the child what they should be doing. Because if you've got physical children of your own, when you tell a child to do something, they'll go and do the opposite. So you have to learn the skill of listening and ask them why they do this. So in your case, why do you think I'm like a dry biscuit? Why do you think somebody else is more luscious and tasty than me? But that's the conversation. You see, then the inner child laughs, and then you can have the conversation.
Yeah.
But here's the trick. Once you get over it, and this is different to everybody, but I think for a guideline, if you do this for about a month, 3 weeks, a month, and then this way of thinking then becomes familiar. And so the inner child will buy into this way of thinking because the inner child favors familiarity. So once you can get this, so it's the regularity of sitting down 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. I wouldn't make it too long. Don't make it an hour. It's too long. The inner child will get bored. 15, 20 minutes is plenty time. Have a listen to some of our meditations. I've done a couple of inner child meditations and Shen meditations. Have a look at the series we've done on reparenting your child, and just perhaps look at one of the videos and just work through the video with your inner child. But what you're looking for is that, this is how I see it, Alex. When I work with a client, it's like we go down. The golden thread is like leading down into a dark, dank cellar. And in the corner of this dark, dank cellar, I see a beautiful child that's just huddled in a corner, scared stiff and doesn't want to move. And I want to go over and sit with them and talk to them and show them that there is a way out, and offer them my hand, that they can walk with me. And I'll walk in front at the beginning until they get used to it and they get familiar with it. And then they'll run off and they'll go outside and play. Because I think that's what our inner child really wants to do, is be outside in the sunshine playing, not stuck in a corner, scared of life and scared of things and wanting somebody to come and save them. The real savior, here's the life lesson. There's only one real savior, and it's yourself. And you are the savior of you.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And as you said, we've done so many other helpful teachings on this topic and meditations as well that can support you with this practice. So in the show notes, I will put links to some of those meditations, some of the teachings on inner child reparenting, and also to our love and relationships video series, which has a huge amount of resources in there for you as well. If you'd have enjoyed this teaching, please do let us know, and perhaps share it with someone else who you think may also benefit from it. David works every week by Zoom video call with clients all over the world on these sorts of issues. If you'd like to learn more about David's consultations, I'll put a link to those in the show notes also. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new teachings every week, and we would love to share your journey with you. Bye-bye.